So that accord is set to be signed. I just want to come back, Philip, as we look at those images and think about what Guterres had to say. We were cut earlier, but he spoke about this being a beacon of possibility. That concept has been echoed by Recep Erdogan, who said, this should be a start to the end of the war. What do you make of those two speeches today?
I think you can be in no doubt that both of these men would like the war in Ukraine to be over as quickly as possible. I think there is hope, too, that maybe this will be the start of more negotiations between both sides, signing taking place right now. But we're still not there. This is, as Antonio Guterres, the head of the UN, was saying, a beacon of relief for the world. Relief not because the war is over, but relief because there is food supplies are on their way, and also there are going to be this will hopefully contribute to not allowing food prices to become any higher than they are already. It will also come as a relief for people living in Africa and in the Middle East and elsewhere who are threatened with famine and food shortages, that now this agreement has been signed, those grain exports can resume from Ukraine, those vital grain exports from Ukraine. That was more or less a message from Antonio Guterres, saying that it was a long road that had led to this agreement, and it was not an easy agreement to get. And then President Erdogan of Turkey spoke, and he said that once again, yes, this agreement will bring down the prices of food because grain will now be flowing out of Ukraine again. He said the international community will now have to play an important role in making sure that this agreement is adhered to. And then a call for the conflict to come to an end, saying no one can win in this war. A message, I think, straight away to President Putin and also to President Zelensky. Neither parties nor the world, neither parties involved in this war, Ukraine and Russia, nor the rest of the world can win from this conflict. And the impact everywhere is negative. The war's had a negative impact on the world's population, not just on Ukraine and Russia. And he hopes that there will be an agreement. He says that he is pushing for an agreement between both sides to end the war, and that Turkey is going to keep up the efforts along with the United Nations to try to find some kind of agreement between Russia and Ukraine to bring this conflict to an end. But I think quite strong words there from President Erdogan, especially to Russia, because he's playing a middle role in discussing it with both the Ukrainians on one side and on the Russians on the other. You have to remember that Turkey is also a member of NATO. So I think President Erdogan trying to show himself as a middleman, a go-between between both sides, and stressing the fact that this war is not helping anybody, it's not benefiting either side, nor the international community, and it's time that they both sign free.
Philip, I think a lot of people watching this will be wondering how optimistic we can be about this. Is there some caution that we still need to take as we move forward with this? Because one would imagine there's still a lot of work to be done before these ports become operational again.
Well, Antonio Guterres was saying there is a joint communication task force which is going ahead to make sure that this agreement is adhered to. Now, as Jasper Mortimer, our correspondent in Turkey, was saying a little bit earlier on, there is a lot of suspicion on both sides about exactly what is going to happen. And as far as the Russians are concerned, what they don't want is for these ships, once the mines have been cleared away, the ships going in to these three ports where this grain is going to be loaded on board. They don't want those ships to be taking weapons into Ukraine. That's one of the points that they have stipulated. And as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, they don't want those ships coming in to bring in Russian soldiers or Russian weapons that can be used against the Ukrainians. So a lot of suspicion, and one has to wonder also just how easy it's going to be for this accord to be adhered to, whether it's going to be broken, whether or not both sides are going to play the game, whether Russia is going to agree to adhere to this accord afterwards, whether they're going to blame each other for not respecting it. This is a step in the right direction, but I think the world has to be very vigilant now. There may be an agreement on grain export, but this doesn't mean the war is over, and it doesn't mean that Russia and Ukraine are any closer to getting to the negotiating table to find a way out of this conflict.
Well, ultimately, all parties have signed that deal now, Philip. But moving forward from here, these relief for developing countries, it looks like on some level. You spoke about perhaps a weakness for Russia in signing this accord.
Well, if you remember 3 days ago, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, made a statement where he warned the West about supplying weapons to Ukraine and said, well, if the West were to continue supplying weapons or to step up those supplies, then Russia would start moving further west in Ukraine, out of the Donbass region, to move its forces west into the rest of the country. Remember that Russia's original aim was to take control of Ukraine within a few days. Then it couldn't do that, so it moved into trying to take control of the Donbass region. It's managed to get control of most of Donbass, but not all of it, and it's struggling to do the rest. So the Russians have not seen this going exactly the way they wanted to. They're telling Russian public opinion that this special military operation that they were talking about is going as planned. But in fact, when push comes to shove, it's not exactly what Vladimir Putin expected it to be when he started this conflict, this push back in February. So I think on that front, it's a sign that maybe the weapons coming into Ukraine have begun to have an effect against Russian forces. Perhaps the weapons coming in from the West are now becoming equal to the weapons being used by the Russian forces. And therefore, Russia is becoming a little bit more preoccupied about what exactly might be the turning point in this war. And the fact that they're signing this agreement with Ukraine to get these grain exports out of the country may also be perceived as being another weakness on Russia's part, because Russia would never have ever entertained the idea when this conflict started that it would end up signing an agreement with Ukraine to export grain out of the country after all these months of conflict.
All right, Philip, we'll be checking in with you a little bit later on today, as, of course, that signing has been done months after a bitter standoff. Russia and Ukraine, both sides have signed separate accords with Turkey and the UN to allow the export of grain.